can a Christian be a lawyer? How can I use my work to glorify God and to spread the gospel, really? Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I wanted to do a highly requested video on can a Christian be a lawyer? And I just want to preface this by saying I know it's a heavy topic, I know it's probably controversial, but as you know, I am Christian and I'm a lawyer. And I think this question comes up because people wonder, how can I reconcile the two together? Being a lawyer and being a Christian might seem at odds at times, so how can you be both? And I just wanted to also say I'm not a religious scholar, I'm not a pastor. Obviously, this is information that I've either read in books or have done a little bit of research on, and also what I've heard my pastor speak about, and what I can kind of gather from reading the Bible and just being a Christian for most of my life. So please take this with a grain of salt and know that I'm not perfect, I don't have all the answers, and this is just a video to help you struggle with this question and figure out what it means for yourself. The book that I found really helpful for this topic is Every Good Endeavor by Tim Keller. I'm going to be quoting a lot from his book during this video and also just bringing up certain points that he made which I think really help to answer this question. So I think if you really want to know more about this topic, I would highly recommend reading that book on your own. Also, try to be courteous in the comments below. Again, this is a heavy topic and it's controversial. Please be kind to one another, and if someone has a question, don't hate on them. If you are not a Christian but you're interested in this topic, please feel free to watch this, and I really encourage you to understand how we try to view our work. We don't want to have a community of hate here, and so I really encourage us to really be positive. So if you're interested, then keep on watching. So I think when exploring this question, can a Christian be a lawyer? The first question to ask is, what does it mean to work in a biblical and godly sense? So in the book, Tim Keller describes work as something that God does through us. It was God's design for our life. So that means that yes, as humans, as God created us, we are meant to work. But whatever that means for each person is different. And also a caveat to mean that just because you're meant to work, it doesn't mean that it should become an idol in our lives. That means there is a time to stop and there is a time to rest. We shouldn't be workaholics, essentially. The next question to ask when working is it becoming an idol in your life? Is it taking over your life? Is it really impeding into the other spiritual aspects of your life? For example, are you not able to go to church on Sundays, a small group? Are you not praying? Are you not reading your Bible? Are you not cultivating that personal relationship with God and with your community because you're too busy working or because you're too tired from work? If that is the case, then I would say your work is becoming an idol, is becoming more important than what should be the most important thing, which is your relationship with God and growing in God. So this can be true for lawyers and non-lawyers. I know lawyers are often seen as working long hours. Most often than not, they work more than 40 hours a week. Unlike me, obviously I'm very lucky that I work a 9-to-5 job as an in-house lawyer, but a lot of lawyers working in firms, they work overtime, they work on weekends, they work at nights. This is something I think that might be unique to lawyers or people that are in high stress, high demand jobs. You're not going to have as much time for God or to do other things that you will want to do to cultivate your relationship with God. And I think that is one thing to take into consideration. Can you tell your boss or your manager, I'm leaving at a certain time because I have a small group, or on Sundays, I'm just not going to be answering my emails because I want to dedicate that time to God. So I think if your work is impeding you, then that would be something that you need to reconsider before going forward and choosing this career or job path if you're a Christian. Another point that Tim Keller made was our work can be considered a calling if we think it's God's assignment for us to serve others. And so the next question might be like, do I have to be called to be a lawyer? And I don't think so. I think you can be called to serve others in multiple ways. God might call you specifically to be a lawyer. I mean, I personally don't think that God called me. It's just a career path that I chose. But now that I'm here, the key question is how can I use my work to glorify God and to spread the gospel, really? And this concept of serving others can mean a lot of different things. For lawyers, we often have clients, we have people that we interact with daily, and we could be seen as serving them, and serving them in a way that not only helps them, but just gives them more ability to be a better person, to help them during their time of need, whatever that may be. I'm going to read a quote from the book because I don't want to mess this up, and I think this is a really good way to summarize how we should view our work. So the quote says, being a Christian at work means thinking out the implications of the gospel worldview and God's purposes for your whole work life and for the whole of the organization under your influence. So the way I view this is that the gospel is a set of glasses that you view your work through. Broken down, what does that mean? You know the saying to glorify God through your work, but a lot of us struggle for what does that really mean? And I think it means that while you're at work, no matter what you're doing, even if you're not a pastor or you're not working in the church, you should view your work as glorifying God and as furthering the gospel. For example, if your boss asks you to do something that you're uncomfortable with, if you need to interact with coworkers or clients, customers, vendors, how do you approach them? How do you carry yourself? Do you gossip behind their back? Do you yell at them? Do you get a short temper? Are you mean? Are you lying, cheating? Are you trying to stab them in the back? These are obviously things that God would not want you to do, even if these people are mean to you or whatever. If you view your work through the lens of the gospel, then you would want to be more gracious to others. You would want to be merciful. You want to be helpful. You want to be courteous. You want to really be that Christ-like figure to them in their lives, even if they don't know if you're a Christian or not. So for example, being a corporate lawyer like myself, it might be hard to see how I can spread the gospel or glorify God through my work. But like I said, it's in my everyday interactions with my coworkers, with my boss, with my vendors, with my customers, how I interact with them and how I treat them, how I treat situations where we may need to be honest about what happened, or saying no to things that you feel uncomfortable with, or choosing not to gossip about another coworker with a different coworker. And so I think another point is that as Christians, we are held to a higher standard. The world's standards, the world's moral standards are obviously different than us. We are supposed to not be of this world. And so I think if you view it like that, we are meant to be held accountable, we are meant to be honest, we are meant to be generous, we are meant to be compassionate. And not just because we want to be legalistic and not just because these things are rewarding, but it's because it's the right thing to do, because to do so honors the will of God and His design for human life. As I mentioned before, this is true with any job, but also with being a lawyer. Sometimes, especially if you're a criminal lawyer or a lawyer that has to go to court a lot, you're trying to advocate for your client, which sometimes might mean cross-examining the other witnesses, cross-examining the other parties, trying to make them look bad, trying to catch them or trip them up. You might even have to represent a murderer. But regardless of the fact pattern, the point is still, are you glorifying God through your work, and are you making the right decisions that God would have wanted you to do with the lens of the gospel? I don't know what that looks like in your life, and I'm not here to judge. Only God can judge, and only God sees really how you work and how you act at work. It is true that in the Bible, Jesus defended the adulterous woman, which was a capital crime back in those days. And so I guess you have to try to see, what does that mean? Is Jesus saying that we should defend those that are guilty of a certain crime or not? And again, I don't have the answer to that. I think you just have to sort of make the call on your own and think about how this is glorifying God. So in conclusion, lawyer or not, being a Christian in the workplace is hard, and I don't have all the answers, and I'm sorry that I wasn't able to give a very concrete or black and white answer, but that's because it's really your personal relationship with God. And I think if you think about these main points that Tim Keller made in his book, it helped me a lot to sort of view my work in a way that I didn't before, because the kind of work that I do isn't something that I would think the gospel would be in, because it's not religious work. But it's not about that, it's about our attitude. So I think in the end, it's not about asking whether or not you can be a Christian and a lawyer, it's asking whether or not your work is glorifying God. I'm in no way perfect, I obviously make mistakes, and I don't have all the answers, but with this in mind, let's try to strive to be better together. I know people always say that we should be a light in our workplace, and I think this is a great start, because if you don't act like everyone else, people will notice something different about you, and they might ask you, how is it that you're not able to gossip about that other person, or how come you never get mad, or you never seem to blow up on people? And that's an opportunity for you to glorify God through that, to point back to Him and say, it's because of Jesus, honestly, because it wouldn't be anything that I am doing. So if you have any questions, please comment below. I know this video might not have been as straightforward as you were hoping, but I hope it gave you some good insight. Also give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and subscribe for more content, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!